Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, top 5 tips for the beginning knife maker. So I get a lot of feedback from folks who watch my videos who say, I'm interested in taking up knife making as a hobby or whatever, but I just have no clue where to start. So this video is really intended to address that basic question. Now, I'm going to do another video that gets into some really practical issues that you are going to face as a knife maker and some things that you want to focus on as you start to increase your skills. But this is really just going to be kind of, I don't know how to say it, just a philosophy maybe, some things that you should just be thinking about as you launch into making knives. So the first general point that I want to make is I really believe that anybody can make knives. There's no giant set of tools or skills or whatever that you need in order to start. Okay, so my first tip is just start small. Don't be intimidated by the whole thing. Just try to do some really simple things and recognize that you're not going to start with every single tool that a professional knife maker has, but that's okay. If you start with very small knife making projects, just a limited palette of tools, you can still actually make very functional tools. So don't be afraid to take that first step. All right. Tip number 2, and this kind of goes along the same lines, is also don't be afraid to make mistakes. The reality is that when you jump into anything new, especially something new that you don't have tons of guidance from, a friend or a teacher or whatever, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to make some stuff that's not very good, and that's okay. Every single time you fail, it's a learning experience. So don't be afraid of that. Tip number 3, be resourceful about educating yourself. There's stuff online, there are books, there are videos, there are a million places you can go. Right here on YouTube, enormous numbers of resources for you to learn about how to do things. And one of the most important aspects of educating yourself is that, talk to 5 different knife makers, they'll tell you 5 different ways of doing almost anything. And you read 5 different books and they're going to emphasize different things. So the more that you get out there and educate yourself and the more different ways that you see, there's not one right way to do any of this stuff. And so when you see a wide range of different techniques, then you can adapt those for yourself and come up with something that works for you. Everybody's got different ways of learning. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people like talking to other people, some people like going back in the woodshed and figuring it out themselves. Understand how you like to learn and try to embrace that and use that to your advantage. Now, a really important point that goes along with this is don't cheap out on educating yourself. There are videos out there that cost some money. I make some of them myself, that you have to pay for. And, there are books out there. You got to go to the bookstore and buy them. There are blacksmithing hammer-ins and conferences and so forth that it's going to cost you a little bit of money to go to. A lot of guys will spend, enormous amounts of money, thousands of dollars on tools, but then they cheap out on educating themselves as to how to use those things. Don't do that. It's always tempting to say, well, I could put $10 into steel or $10 into this book. I just want the steel because I can go ahead and make a knife. Well, in the long run, that's going to inhibit your learning process. So don't cheap out on the education. Read, study, network, meet knife makers, whatever you can do to up your game. All right, so if you decide you want to be a lawyer, you can go to law school. If you decide you're going to be a doctor, you go to medical school. If you decide you want to be an accountant, you go and get an accounting degree. So many things in our society have a very clear roadmap as to how you're going to get there. Not that way in most artistic careers and not even with a lot of artistic hobbies. And knife making, there are just not that many folks around who do knife making. They're not, schools, at every community college that show you how to do it, like there are, welding classes or whatever. So my big point here is embrace your independence. Just understand nobody's going to hold your hand. Nobody's going to tell you, well, you have to do this and you can't do that, and here are all the steps, and show up at a certain time. This is you. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, the wonderful thing about knife making is that you get to do it your way. There are always going to be people who tell you, no, that's the wrong way, this is the right way, I understand. And the more time you spend on the internet, you'll always find people out there who tell you that they understand everything about knife making and you don't. Most of the time, these people are idiots who don't know anything, but every now and then you'll run into people who genuinely know something. And some of those people like to make other people feel small. Don't let that happen to you. Just go back to your shop, start working, and whatever you do, just try and make it the best you can. Alright, so the final tip here is just do it. If you think this is going to be something that'd be fun and you're interested in taking it on as a challenge, just get out there and get started. I promise you, you don't have to know tons and tons of stuff. You don't have to have tons and tons of equipment. It's nice to have lots of equipment, and obviously professional knife makers may know all kinds of things about metallurgy and machinery and this and that, but you don't have to know all that from the get-go. Let me clarify what I mean. The top knife makers are enormously skilled people. They've spent decades relentlessly studying their craft and accumulating a very wide range of knowledge about everything from metallurgy to woodworking to artistic design to more specialized craft areas like scrimshaw or engraving or stone setting to maybe even history and archaeology. But my point is, you don't have to be that guy in order to make your first knife. You can only be you, standing where you are, knowing what you know. Remember, cavemen were making amazing cutting tools with a couple of flakes of rock. Great oak trees start as tiny acorns. A little piece of steel, a file, a drill press, just a couple things, you can get out there and get started yourself. So the main thing I'd say is just focus on having fun. You're not going to get rich making knives. You're not going to win the Nobel Prize. This is something that you do for yourself. So enjoy it, have fun, and don't be afraid. Just jump in there and go to it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, here are a couple of other videos that you might be interested in. Also, like me on Facebook at Walter Sorrells Blades, and check out my website, waltersorrellsblades.com, where you'll find examples of my work along with instructional videos showing all aspects of Japanese sword making, including forging and polishing, how to make hamones, and how to make fittings, scabbards, and handles for Japanese swords.